We'll move to submission now from Geoff Neal, who is the co-founder of theFacts.nz and KPI.nz. And Geoff, I believe, is joining us by Zoom.
So I'm the common denominator between Kiwi performance indicators and the facts. So we do a lot of data work. We've got some of the best data sets in the country across official government data and polling, and some of that's exclusive. So for us, we do a lot of graphs. Picture paints 1,000 words, so hence why I wanted to do more of a visual submission today. So if I move through to the second slide, so what Kiwi performance indicators does is, rather than what we each think individually, we use data on what Kiwis rate as the most important issues to rate the top 10 most important issues. That's across Curia, Ipsos, and Guardian Essential Research. And what's really fascinating is that treaty and race relations for the first time is breaking into the top 10 issues for Kiwis. You can see that it's number 11 for Curia, it's 16th equal for Ipsos, but when you sort of put in issues with Maori, for Maori at 11th place, it's starting to just break in there at the top 10. Ipsos also breaks down what Maori New Zealanders think are the biggest issues, and you can see that issues facing Maori in third place after cost of living and the general housing or price of housing. Curia has presented some additional research for us, and you can see cost of living at the top there, very easily the number one issue, but issues for Maori are second for Maori people. Jumping over to the Facts website. So the KPI is a ranking of the top issues for New Zealand, whereas the Facts covers whatever's topical at the time. So we've got stats here on sport, smoking, school attendance, transgender issues. But the last two actually are on the treaty. And because Māori wards are part of the treaty, I wanted to share these today. And this should be something that concerns all of the members of the committee, but no organisation in New Zealand is trusted by 50% of Kiwis to provide accurate treaty information. So this is a big challenge that we need to overcome. The Waitangi Tribunal is only trusted by a bit more than a third, and media and politicians are underneath, well, below 10%, down here with social media. So I wanted to present this because we've got for the Māori wards, but every other issue, the Treaty Principles Bill, we've got a real challenge that basically out here, we don't believe any of you. So I wanted to present that. And the latest fact we did was on the Treaty Principles Bill. And as you can see here, 3 to 1 Kiwis want it. This has not been well publicised. This is a piece of Curia research. A message for the national members in the room. You've said you won't support it past the first reading, but 4 to 1 of your voters want it. For the Labour members in the room, even more of your voters support the Treaty Principles Bill. So I've got a whole lot of data here on every other party and breakdown. There's pretty unanimous support. Let's dive deeper into actual polling on the Māori wards specifically. This is from another research company. So we use a lot of different research companies. This is Talbot Mills, Labour's pollster. So can't be accused of too much bias there towards the coalition. Now they asked a Māori wards question, and 2.4 to 1 oppose Māori wards in government. If we go to actual referendums that have happened, only 3 have been successful, 21 unsuccessful. So roughly 9 out of 10 get voted down. So at great cost and with a very low success rate. I think this proves that New Zealanders don't want Māori wards. If we look at some other data now on what all of these race-based policies have done for New Zealand, I've got 3 different pieces of data on social unity or cohesion. So this is from Essential Research and Guardian, and this was done just before the election in September. And that people were asked, is New Zealand more or less divided than we were a few years ago? 77% say we're more divided. And these little green slithers here, only 3% say we're more united. If we look to another piece of research a couple of months earlier, and this is a different outfit, this is One News with the Averian polling, half of the country think race relations have got worse, only 40% have got better. And if we go a bit further back again, then this is New Zealand Herald and Dinata now, and 2/3 of voters believe New Zealand's become more divided across all age groups except for young people. So we have some massive issues with social unity and cohesion. There's actually massive racial division. It's getting worse. This is something I felt was important to share with the committee with regards to the Māori Awards bill. Now, we've also got another challenge here, which we've got our state broadcaster who's been accused of a lot of left-wing bias in recent times. And on the 4th of April, when they covered the Māori wards, they used very inflammatory and false information, such as reactions being swift and strong. So despite Kiwis overwhelmingly opposing Māori wards and wanting more racial equity and equality, TVNZ comes out and says there's been outrage, use words like division, racist, anti-Māori, and how dare we have the ability to challenge a decision in a democracy. The coalition's friend, Mikey Sherman, comes out and she talks all about the cost of referendums of $100,000, but she didn't mention any cost of discussing, establishing, maintaining Māori wards, including which are surely far greater than the cost of a referendum. So that's something that would be good information to put out there. Then they went on to talk about, they gave Simeon Brown a little bit of information, a little window here to talk about the rights of communities, but then used the words racist, colonisation, division, fear, violence. Then they had the Green member, Mayor Tori Whānau, as the only mayor that spoke. She talked about this overrules local government decisions. This is actually an example of local government overruling citizens. Local Government New Zealand, you'll have this. I'll let you read through it because I'm conscious of time, but more left-wing narrative and ideology. And it really is the opposite of localism. Localism is letting locals make the decision, and councils are not capable and they're overreaching because they're not listening to the people. One of the most basic democracy tests is that elected representatives should not be able to decide how they're elected next time. And you've seen my recommendations. We need to pass this bill. We need to restore basic democratic principles. I would like to see a timeline for phasing out all race-based seats in local and central government. And I'd love to see the cost of Māori wards. Now, this may be in favour of the pro or against side. I don't know. We actually don't know the cost of Māori wards. If they're cheaper than referendums, that's a strong argument to keep them. If they're more expensive, that's an argument to get rid of them. Thank you very much for the time. I realise it's 9:30 now, but back to you.
Thank you, Geoff. We started a bit late and we had those technical issues, so we do have a bit of time. What I'll suggest to the clerk of the committee is if you can circulate that presentation if members want to read some of those statistics if they like. Any question? Can we end the screen sharing just so I can see if there are any hands up from online members? So we've got a question, and I'm not sure who was first, but we'll start with Todd Stevenson. You haven't had one this morning, and then we'll go to Maria Mino Kapakingi, and then
I'll be quick. Thank you for your presentation. I mean, one of the most stark things, obviously, is the loss of trust in people providing information around treaty and race issues. Do you think that the changes made in 2021, which basically removed the community's right to have a say around Māori wards, could have contributed to that loss in trust?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Like democracy, one vote, one person. Like we have to move towards that. That is our future. And are we getting closer to that or further away? And I would argue we're getting further away. And I do a lot of work in trust in the media too, and it's deteriorating rapidly. So look, my view is I want a united people. I really do. And it may seem like I'm anti-Māori wards here. I'm just anti-separatism and anti-racial based policy.
thank you,
You
Geoff.
see the destruction it's doing to the country. Like out here, social racial division, no one measures it, but I think it's a top 5 issue.
Hey, Geoff, Maria Mino.
Geoff, thank you. I agree with your statement. It is a big issue, and it is in favour of the racism in which Māori suffer. So my question to you is: are you saying that racism against Māori, systemic racism, isn't a thing? Like it isn't a thing. It's all gone away, and we're happy brown people.
I think there's racism against every ethnicity in New Zealand, and it's abhorrent, and I want it gone. But I don't think it's as bad as it's sometimes portrayed in political or media circles.
Are you Māori?
I don't know. I've been trying to find out. I've often been.
You aren't, and I get that. I get that.
Yeah. And I'm olive skinned, and I don't know where it comes from. And I've tried, but I just can't find one side of my family. No data. So yeah, Hopefully I will find out.
Go find it. Go find it. Thank you, Geoff. Thank you.
Willie?
Geoff, you won't be surprised that I think you're talking a load of rubbish. But thank you for your submission. You got every right to put a submission up. That's what this process is about. I just wanted to question you on a couple of areas. See, one of the things, and I was interested in what you were saying in terms of issues. One of the things I found fascinating over the last few years, Geoff, is that Maori issues never featured in the big sort of angst in terms of New Zealanders. You might want to comment on this. It was always cost of living, education, health, and I always felt, you know, people like yourself, organisations like yourself, always ramp it up to, oh, this is a big deal out there, but it never. And Talbot does our, you know, they do all our polling and all that, but never ranked in the top 3 to 5 issues. So I just want you, I want to comment on that from you. Thanks, Geoff. And then the other part is, I'm always interested in this democracy debate, because I feel that this is a good example of democracy, because the councils make the final decisions, Geoff. So, you know, you guys vote these councils in, right? And so it's not like there are automatic Maori, excuse me, it's not like there's automatic Maori boards. The council has a right to decide whether there's a Maori board or not. And now in Auckland said no, you know, and you've rightly pointed to other areas. So I'm interested in why you say this is not an example of democracy, given that councils make the final decisions and you guys put those councils in. So I just don't understand why you have to go back to the community to actually, thanks, Kim, why you have to go back to the community when you've already got a strong example of democracy there. So interested in your views on that, Geoff. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, I knew that you'd be hard to win over today, Willie. Look, on that first question, issues facing Māori, like if you go back to my slides, I think we need to go back to those polling companies and say, Ipsos, you say issues facing Māori is the 3rd biggest issue for Māori, but what does that mean? Issues facing Māori, is it education, is it health, is it treaty? So I think the research companies are letting us down here. We need to dive deeper, because no one knows the answer. Like, what is that? So that's the first thing I'd answer to that. And Curia in their other research said issues facing Māori was the 2nd most important after cost of living. So a big research gap there. In terms of representation, I mean, only 40% of us voted in the local council elections. So it's not the local council system, local government is broken. We're not participating. We don't care. We had massive issues with alphabetical bias in Auckland and I think 21 other regions, where if you basically, your surname starts with ABC, you're 5 times more likely to get in.
That's true.
And they don't represent us. I think a lot of people just don't think their council represents them. We have Labour and Green Party very strong at pushing their candidates through local bodies, and I don't think that councils are reflective of society. I don't think they should be given the right to make decisions based on us when it could go to referendum.
Thanks for that, Geoff.
Thanks, Geoff. We've got one more question. We do have a question, Geoff, from former councillor Mr. Brewer, starts with a B, so maybe he's benefited from the ABC bias, but he's a good man anyway.
Well and true. Here in Auckland.
That's normally the only reason I get voted. Morning, Geoff. Just want to run past you. We've had quite a few submitters so far talk about perhaps the referendum, and as we are looking at this legislation as a select committee, we'll be looking at these issues. Perhaps the referendums need to be non-binding. Perhaps the threshold should be lifted to 10% instead of 5% to trigger a referendum. And perhaps we should establish some carve-outs around some councils where Maori wards are well established. Do you have a view on any of those three points?
I'm not a fan of non-binding referendums. I'm a fan of the voice of the people. I mean, my party is the data party. My vote goes where, based on who's performed best and what the people want. I don't think the 5 to 10% is the key issue. Look, we've got 17.8% of Kiwis identifying as Māori based on the latest census data. That's the ethnicity box they ticked. And we have more than 17.8% of our parliament is Māori, and our caucus, or our cabinet, sorry, the cabinet is the highest number of Māori ever, apparently. But I haven't seen data on local councils. So perhaps there's an argument there to go out to the councils and work out, are Māori overrepresented or underrepresented? Just to use two other figures, only 3% of journalists are Asian, underrepresented in media. Only about 3% of business owners are Pacifica. So Pacifica is underrepresented in business. So I would answer that question by saying, let's look at the data. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Geoff. Thank you for your presentation and for the information you shared with us this morning. We do appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Kia ora.
Cheers, Geoff.